It is a very alluring scene, and you are on your way home on the train. There isn't any sex on the 14 o'clock train, so that's not funny. As a 14-year-old, Diane Lane graced the cover of Time. A millionaire with a picture-perfect face, she was just 18 years old. Hollywood was after her as a teenage star, but she became more reserved as she traveled. Two of her co-stars, Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins, were long suspected of having affairs, but she didn't come clean about it until she was 59 years old. From her days as a young actress in a romantic comedy to the terrifying scene in Unfaithful, everyone assumed she was actually dating someone. Many unanswered rumors surround Diane Lane, who has had 2 failed marriages and an arrest that sparked controversy. Who, though, is hiding behind those sorrowful eyes? You should not miss this opportunity to hear the untold story. New York City is the site of Diane Lane's birth on January 22, 1965. A former nightclub singer and model, her mother, Colleen Lee Farrington, was a centerfold for Playboy Miss October 1957. In addition to his roles as a cab driver, teacher, and acting coach in Manhattan, her father, Burton Eugene Lane, had a theater workshop with John Cassavetes. Her parents divorced when Diane was just 13 days old. Even though Diane's mother filed for a divorce and relocated to Mexico, she maintained custody of her until she turned 6 years old. Diane was passed down to her father by her when she relocated to Georgia. After that, Diane spent many years in New York City with her father, accompanying him in his taxi daily and staying in various residential hotels. Diane had an unusual childhood, complete with unorthodox upbringing, irregular schooling, and rides across Manhattan in an old cab. She spent her formative years engrossed in the bohemian lifestyle of artists and on tiny stages, rather than in a stable environment. During that period, she was compelled to mature. When Diane was 15 years old and no longer resided with her father, she unilaterally declared CED. Christopher Atkins, who she worked with and became friends with in Child Bride of Short Creek, joined her on a week-long flight to Los Angeles. Diane would later explain her actions by claiming she was immature and unrestrained. She resided with the family of a friend upon her return to New York, where she paid her rent and completed her high school education through correspondence. But in 1981, her mom made an unexpected return and whisked her away to Georgia. After 6 weeks of litigation involving Diane and her father, the judge finally let Diane go back to New York. Diane Lane learned to live simply away from the mayhem in the Georgia town of BAU, which she occasionally visited while in the company of her Pentecostal grandmother. She described a life free of obligations, complete with salted meat butter, lawnmower repairs, and eating. Despite the intense pressures of Hollywood, it helped her maintain her composure and sense of reality. Diane Lane is a strong-willed, independent woman who is cautious of the media and who consistently differentiates between her real life and the parts she plays, thanks to the experiences she had as a child, including her parents' divorce, living in unstable circumstances, and having to mature rapidly. Diane Lane made her film debut alongside the legendary Laurence Olivier in a romantic comedy in 1979 when she was just a child star. Diane Lane became an overnight sensation on screen thanks to this film, which was more than just a stepping stone. A genuine actress with nuanced emotions, expressive eyes, and a depth of feeling that belied her years, she was more than just a charming child. A little over a year later, on August 13, 1979, she became the talk of the town after appearing on the cover of Time magazine under the headline, "Hollywood's Whiz Kids." Fresh breeze in an era of cinema lacking in, was the magazine's description of her. Hollywood fell head over heels for Diane Lane, not because she was flawless, but because she was authentic and genuine on screen. Diane Lane brought each scene to life, convincing both adults and children that every emotion was genuine. Many actors spend their entire careers attempting to gain the audience's trust. Diane had already achieved it by the time she was 14 years old. Despite the inevitable highs and lows, Hollywood's most precious commodities, patience and respect, would forever be bestowed upon her because of that stellar beginning. Diane quickly went on to star in a slew of blockbuster films, including Touched by Love and Six Pack. She later achieved her zenith with films such as Rumblefish, The Outsiders, Streets of Fire, and The Cotton Club. Francis Ford Coppola, a tremendous compliment for a teenage actress, gave her 3 consecutive roles in several of these films. Thanks to her high salaries, consistently appearing in films, and hectic schedule, Diane Lane had amassed $1 million by the time she was 18 years old. Diane, however, had to cope with the downsides of fame as it increased. The fact that she and her co-stars Matt Dillon, Michael Pear, and Richard Gere got along famously on screen led to rumors that they were dating when she was a teenager. In order to keep her personal life private, Diane frequently had to publicly refute these rumors or remain silent. For instance, many people fail to understand that my on-screen romantic involvement with someone does not necessarily translate to my actual feelings for them. Additionally, she was typecast and seldom had opportunities to display a broader spectrum of emotions because most of the parts she landed during this period were variations on the ideal girlfriend. Diane had to avoid the media and be pickier with her scripts when audiences began to confuse her with the characters she played. Diane Lane's meteoric rise to stardom in Hollywood was nothing short of remarkable, but being an accomplished actress isn't enough to make it in a world that wants to write your story for you. And she had to figure out fast that fame isn't the same as being understood. In a new chapter of her career, Diane Lane no longer merely acted. She fought for recognition as a fully realized artist, ending years of inhabiting the hazy realm between character and reality. As the on-screen girlfriend, she played the role of Connie Sooner in Adrian Lyne's Unfaithful, 2002, a marriage that appears ideal on the outside but leaves the wife feeling profoundly lonely and estranged. In the train scene following Connie's first affair, Diane played a character with a great deal of depth and conflict for the first time. Instead of talking or having sex, all you hear are shaky hands, confused eyes, and shallow breaths. Many people still think the scene is fantastic because of the way it uses silence to convey emotion, but few realize that it wasn't originally part of the script. We had finished the shot and were bringing the train back to the station when Adrian Lyne said, "Just shoot something." Diane explained this during an interview with Jess Cagle's show. "I simply shut my eyes and began without asking a single question. Since we only got one take, we scrapped the idea of doing it again for late night." Amidst her laughter, she remarked, "There's no sex scene on the train, but everyone thinks there is." This was during her appearance on Night with Conan O'Brien. Therein lies the strength of feeling and perspective. Diane Lane was nominated for both the Hollywood Film Awards Actress of the Year Award and the Academy Award for Best Actress for her portrayal of Connie. The public's perception of her shifted from that of a teenage girlfriend defined by her male co-star to that of a genuine actress whose quiet strength could propel an entire film. There was no let-up in Diane Lane's pace after Unfaithful. Returning to the role in 2003's Under the Tusking Sun, she did so barely a year after that. Frances, the character she played, had a completely different tone than her previous roles. Her character was a middle-aged woman who had just gotten a divorce and was looking to start over in a dilapidated Tuscan villa. She left her old life behind in the United States. Frances wasn't seeking romantic interest, she was seeking self-discovery. Someone real inspired Diane Lane's character. She said on Conan O'Brien's late night show that filming in Tuscany was a dream vacation at first, but that after 5 weeks, it became too much. She pointed out, "I had eaten all the wine, all the olive oil, tried all the pasta, and I missed my normal life." A new symbol for middle-aged women in Hollywood, Diane Lane's portrayal of Frances A woman who comes strong without acting became nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. Rebirth was depicted by Diane Lane in a very genuine, clumsy, and humane way. Through Under the Tuscan Sun, Diane transcended her teenage stardom and became an adult who resonated with a generation of women who are grappling with identity crisis following a loss. Diane Lane became an inspiration to Hollywood's middle-aged women when she portrayed Frances. Diane Lane did more than portray the same character in Tuscan Sun. She immersed herself in the lives of flawed, quiet women whose secrets were rife with subdued rebellion. She portrayed a wife in A Walk on the Moon, 1999, who is gradually losing interest in her marriage she once chose. As the summer vacation passes with her husband at work, not because the lover is too good to resist, but because she has lost interest in the peaceful life of a faithful wife, Diane subtly betrays him. Viewed through the eyes of a woman who is aware of her wrongdoing, but unable to refrain, the film lacks dramatic confrontations. It was for this role that Diane was nominated. It marked the beginning of a new era in which Diane began to act with emotion rather than dialogue, and it was especially significant for the Independent Spirit Awards. She portrayed Penny Chenery, a middle-aged housewife who grudgingly takes over her father's horse farm, in the 2010 film Secretariat. Secretariat, written by Penny, became one of the greatest racehorses in American history, despite the fact that she lived through the male-dominated professional horse racing world, where men made all the decisions and women were expected to remain silent. This role challenged ageist stereotypes and served as Diane's subtle declaration, "I don't play the lover anymore, I play the leader." A break from acting was given to Diane in Trumbo, 2015. Cleo Fincher was played by Diane during her time on the Hollywood blacklist as the wife of Dalton Trumbo, a screenwriter. Diane played Cleo with suffocating resolve, and the role wasn't meant to make viewers feel sorry for her. Cleo was an underrepresented strong woman who quietly bore the brunt of her husband's decisions without grumbling or fleeing. She demonstrated the weight of her character's decisions simply by standing there. No grand speeches were required. In 2008, Diane revisited romance and Knights in Rodanthe, reuniting with Richard Gere after more than 20 years, in addition to silently portraying strong women. They weren't two young, passionate lovers this time. They were two adults who had... The audience bought into Diane and Jar's performance as if they had actually loved each other in the past. Genuine chemistry like that doesn't require proof. It manifests in the long silences shared by two wounded souls and in every look. Diane Lane maintained a quiet and reserved public persona for a long time. She preferred to stay out of the spotlight and avoid making controversial remarks. She was popularly thought of as an artist who dedicated her life to her work and shied away from controversy. However, Diane finally spoke out in 2005 when she was interviewed by Esquire magazine, and her confession shocked many. As if releasing a heavy load, she said it plainly. In addition to shocking the media, her confession prompted many to reconsider the long-running romance rumors that had dogged her since the 1980. Matt Dillon, Michael Peer, and Richard Gere rumors that had been ignored before gained more significance. It wasn't the names Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins that made this confession stand out. Rather, it was the contradiction it revealed about a woman who frequently portrayed characters who were wounded by. Ironically, betrayal crossed that line in real life, making Diane Lane a figure with multiple layers of right and wrong, victim and transgressor, role and reality, from a symbol of raw, honest emotion. While some were disappointed, others saw her candor as proof that she wasn't pretending, but rather living her life to the fullest, even when it was unflattering. Diane Lane's private life has been in the spotlight since she was a young woman, but her longest-term partner, Christopher Lambert, was the one who brought a smile to her face whenever she spoke about him. Paris was the site of their 1984 rendezvous.